All right, here's a few news stories that I thought were interesting. This one in particular was quite surprising. I've heard of these things, relay attacks, for years, but I didn't know they ever actually became practical. But Zimperium has found hundreds of Android apps. And so this is where they somehow steal the electronic payment, like perhaps from Apple Pay, although obviously not on Android. I'm not sure exactly which payment app it is, but one of these single-use credit card payment systems, and they steal the electrical signal and forward it. So one common way of explaining it is you have one phone, the attacker has a phone near the payment terminal. It gets the prompt from the payment terminal and sends it over the internet to the victim's phone, which then replies with the right data to send back to spoof your payment card. Although it sounds like there's quite a few different techniques being used. But they have hundreds of apps that they've found within the last year mostly. And here they're all attacking banks and government agencies in Russia and Spain and other countries near there like Belarus and Poland and Czechoslovakia. And they use all kinds of different techniques. The app asks the server to sign in, server replies. These are the key commands to the malicious app. So like I say, it's somehow gathering the sign-in data from the payment terminal and forwarding it to the real phone and getting the response and forwarding it back. So this is sort of a man-in-the-middle attack and a pretty complicated one. But apparently it's working to steal a lot of money in Russia. So this is a threat that I regarded as pretty much theoretical that now apparently is in widespread use. And so this I've heard a lot about on podcasts and such. This guy, after Charlie Kirk died, he posted a mocking meme, but all it was a picture of something Donald Trump said. After there was a school shooting, Donald Trump came up and said, well, we just have to get over it. And he put that up about Charlie Kirk, and so they arrested him. The police arrested him, and they said that this amounted to him threatening to shoot up a school, which is a crime. They set his bail at $2 million, and he spent a month in prison. He can't pay that bail. Now that it's hit the press, they've released him. They didn't explain why they arrested him. It didn't make any sense. They didn't explain why they released him. And this is a very common pattern among fascist places ruled by a dictator. They just grab people and disappear them with no explanation. And then when they get embarrassed, they just let them loose with no explanation because they can't actually explain why they did it. There was no threat. It was all a lie. And they don't bother to justify their deeds. They just go on and do it to the next person. Until this regime ends, we can expect a lot of this. And I'm reminded again of what Rachel Maddow brought up this week, which is that ICE now has software like Predator that can take over anybody's phone anytime, and they have shown themselves very happy to attack anybody for no reason at all. So and Trump has recently said that he regards anybody who opposes ICE and rather strongly implies that anybody that would even go to a protest is like a terrorist and deserves to have unlimited government action against them. So anyway, it's another thing to be aware of. So OpenAI has put out an agentic security researcher in a private beta. And this is what we were talking about just yesterday in Pulse Security Weekly. Jen Easterly, the former CISA head, has come out and said she thinks this might end all security, the whole business of security, because the AI agents will find all the vulnerabilities and patch them so there won't be vulnerabilities to exploit anymore. And I said, that's ridiculous, that's never going to happen, but here it is. Now the question is, does it actually work? And almost everything else about AI turns out to work a lot less than they think it will. But this thing will supposedly continuously scan your source code, find the vulnerabilities, and patch them. And so it will probably help to some extent. I really don't think it's going to end security risks or end security companies, but it probably will be a good thing. It'll probably be worth something after they, get past this early preliminary stage and get it working. Then it will be just scanning your code, scanning every commit you make to your code, and either patching it, or I would hope more often probably alerting a human so a human oversees the patching. But anyway, this sounds very good. I think a lot of people do have vulnerability scanners in their continuous delivery pipeline already, but this AI one may be more powerful, so it may be good. I'll be interested to hear reports from people that actually use it and test to see how well it works in practice. There was an interesting report that came out last week. One of the uses of AI, because remember, you may remember that about several months ago, Google brought out headline summaries from AI, and they had to take them down because so many of them were outrageously wrong. They were often, the headline was the exact opposite of the real article. And so they tested the AI engines to see how well they can summarize a news story, and they found like 40% of the time they make mistakes, and they found that Google's AI makes mistakes 80% of the time. So I wonder how good this thing is going to be. We'll see. So this I thought was very interesting because I'm quite interested in this. I mean, Cellebrite makes malware that can extract data from any phone. It's not spreading malware, but they make tools which they sell to government agencies and police forces to extract data from phones. And they said at least a few years ago they could get into any model of any phone. And now it seems like they can't do quite that well. They have an interesting chart showing what it shows is they can only get into phones that are unlocked of some version. They can extract data from pixels 6, 7, 8, and 9 in unlocked mode. But it can't brute force passcodes to get full control. So there are limits in what they can do. But one thing that's very interesting is they said if you take the Android operating system off and you put on Graphene OS, then they really can't do much at all. So Graphene OS is really more secure. This reminds me of a story that came out a year ago when one of the data brokers had a breach and they leaked out all their data, and they discovered that if you had been paying a company like DeleteMe to keep your data out of the broker, that actually worked. Those people were not in the dump. So we have a lot of security measures that we offer people, and we really don't know how effective they are. And this is one of those rare cases where a private information is leaked out saying, in fact, Graphene OS is much more secure. People thought it would be, and you've been using it hoping it would be, but here we have the people that make the malware to punch through saying they can't do much to Graphene OS. So that's interesting. And so I saw an article yesterday, I think from the Wall Street Journal, just listing how many layoffs there are. It's outrageous. Thousands of people being laid off from all the big companies, and they're blaming it on AI. And Amazon in particular eliminated 14,000 jobs, and on it goes. And yet people say maybe it's not really the AI. They say they're just using the AI as an excuse and cutting jobs because that makes them look better to makes their financials look better in the short run. And anyway, they also see another article say half the people they laid off, they just have to hire them back, or they have to hire somebody else back, and they say this was a mistake because the new people who are bringing back don't really know what's going on, which is what it does seem to just be a trend. You know, the whole tech industry is given to like enthusiasm and rushes. Everybody rushed to crypto, everybody rushed to outsourcing, now everybody's rushing into AI. Everybody has to do a new thing because it's trendy, and they tend to do it even when it doesn't really work or doesn't make any sense. Anyway, it's bad for the economy, and there's a lot of indicators that the economy is really very bad for real people. The government only serves billionaires now, and only billionaires have a voice in it. And Trump thinks it's working because it's working for the billionaires, but for the rest of us, it's not working very well. And I've seen really amazing stuff like debt is growing quite rapidly. There are people doing short-term payday loans just to pay for groceries and stuff like that. So this is pretty bad. And VMware Tools has a serious flaw, so serious that the feds have ordered everybody to patch it right away in the federal government because Chinese hackers are exploiting it. However, it just looks like a privilege escalation exploit, which normally you don't freak out about as much. Trying to get there. Okay. Yeah, it allows local attacks with non-administrative privileges to escalate privileges to root on the VM. So I guess they're right that that's a vulnerability, but normally privilege escalation doesn't get a very high rating. But they claim it's currently under attack. I just wonder how they get non-administrative privileges on the VM. Anyway, that's an interesting thing to know because, of course, I'm using VMware and VMware Tools all the time. And here, you knew this would have to happen. The Tesla Cybertrucks won't sell, so they're making them into police cars. The police cars are going to be Tesla Cybertrucks, which makes a lot of sense. The things look like military vehicles anyway. They look sort of like those armored personnel carriers or other tank-type vehicles. So probably makes sense. And I remember the original plan of the Cybertruck was that it was going to be very strong, the windows couldn't be broken, it was going to be essentially bulletproof, it was going to be really fast. And so, those are things you want in a police car. So I guess that's not too surprising. They're starting in Las Vegas. We'll see how far they go. All right, and so this is pretty amazing. Biden's press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, has given an interview where she seems to be completely stupid. She doesn't make any sense at all. She says Biden should have run, Biden would have won, there was nothing wrong with him, everybody was completely just unfair in complaining about him, and therefore I'm going to leave the Democratic Party. And when they ask questions about this, her answers just don't make any sense at all. She seems to just be crazed or incoherent or something. So anyway, it's interesting to see. All right. Now I think that's enough of the news. Let me stop this.